Greetings YouTube, this is Longbow. Let's make a compound bow. Now I'm going to be making this compound bow once again out of ABS. This is the exact same pipe I used in my last one, 1 inch in diameter or 25 millimeters and 2 feet long or 60 centimeters. As you can see, these limbs are quite a bit shorter than the limbs on my longbow. This thing is actually 3 times the length of these. But each limb on the compound bow is going to have 3 of these. So in effect, it's going to be a 12-foot bow. I think it should be quite effective. Now, a compound bow is called a compound bow because of the pulleys, or the compound pulley used in its construction. So I'm going to be building my pulley out of this nifty piece of Lexan here. It's very, very hard plastic. And the handle and risers of the bow will be made with this, what is it? 17.5 millimeter wide piece of plywood. This is Russian birch. It's got 9 plies within that 17.5 millimeters. And basically that's it. There's also going to be some nuts and bolts, glue, and other fasteners involved, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So, I guess it's time to start building. Alright, so because we're making a compound bow, the limbs have to be a lot more rigid than they would typically be in a long bow or a flat bow or your standard non-compound bow. So I'm going to accomplish that by taking 3 of these pipes and squashing them until they're completely flat, making kind of a plank, kind of like this. And then I'm going to take those 3 planks and glue them all together, laminating them, and that should greatly increase their strength. The way that's done, of course, is with the handy-dandy hot air gun. So I found that the easiest way to keep these pipes up is to kind of build a little channel around it. And that just kind of concentrates the air inside here and spends more time heating the pipe up rather than just escaping. So, let us begin. Each one of these takes about 10 minutes to eat, so we're talking an hour of doing this for the entire bow. Ready. Let's power down the hot air gun. Take that off. And use the already preheated board here to squash it. It'll give me a little bit more time to work. Missing plank. Just let this sit for about 10 minutes and it'll be nice and dry. And stiffened up like this nice little piece here. So it's been a few minutes now, so let's see what this thing looks like. There she is. Nice flat segment of 1-inch PVC pipe, or 25mm, squashed down to as thin as it can possibly go. Just like the other. But we have a problem here. I want to laminate these things together, but unfortunately inside each there is an air gap where I can't really apply glue. So what I'm going to do is cut the edge off to separate the two pieces. Then I can apply glue to it and glue it back together, and then glue both those combined pieces together to make one big solid chunk of PVC, which will be very strong. So I've set up this fence on my bandsaw, and I'm just going to use that to trim off the rounded edge that was formed during the flattening process. And that will release the two layers of plastic so that I can glue them back together. It sounds kind of weird, but the end result will be stronger than this piece, which is only connected on the two sides. Right down. And two. There. Two nice flat plastic planks. These are extremely flexible, but I've now got this entire surface area to attach glue to. So that will make quite a strong bond. So now we're just about ready to start building up these arms. I've got two of the tubes here, which I've trimmed down. Now they've become 4 flat planks. That will become one of the arms, or limbs of the bow. Here's another 2 tubes, trimmed into 4 flat planks. That will be limb number 2. And in order to give these things a little bit of a taper, I've taken one more tube, flattened it out, and I've determined where the center mark is, right here. And I'm going to cut it there. In this section, one of these will go on the left arm, one on the right arm. So I get it like so. So one there, and one there. And with the second half of the same pipe, I have again determined the center point right here, and the halves that remain, I divided each of those into a 1/3 section and a 2/3 section. That will continue our taper. Put that over here so you can actually see the edge. Continue to build it up. Here's our 2/3 section. Goes there. And the 1/3 section. So now we've got a reasonable taper. Contrary to what you might be thinking, this is actually the tip of the bow, the thicker part. And the bow will be attached to the riser handle assembly at around this point. The reason I'm making it thicker towards the tips is because I want this to taper to become narrow at the end in this dimension. So in order to maintain the strength, I have to thicken it up in this dimension. Simple enough. So now we're ready to start gluing this thing together. After a little bit of sanding. Alrighty. So I've given these both a sanding with this little sanding block here. Or all of these on both sides. So now after a little bit of cleaning off, they'll be ready to assemble. The purpose of the sanding is twofold. One is to roughen the edges, the surfaces up a little bit to provide something for the glue to grip onto, and it also removes the high points from plastic. There, all tidy and ready to start gluing. So I'll just place a board on here to elevate it so I can do some clamping. And I'll take the pieces which I sanded and washed and glue two of them together. I'm just going to proceed two at a time because if I try to do too many at once, they're going to slide around and it's not going to work. I'll shape this up. This is PVC cement. It comes with a brush, but it's pretty small. I'm going to use a paintbrush. I'll just get what's on there off. Just get a nice coating on both of these pieces, just enough to say that they're both wet. Don't want to use a good brush for this because it's going to be thrown away after. Brought a bigger can. Wow, this really stinks. Doesn't quite work the same as white glue. Dries a lot faster. Okay. I'll quickly put the cap back on. Take these two pieces and gross. Stick them together. Board on here and apply some clampage. Don't need a ton of pressure. Don't want a lot of pressure, but I do want a lot of contact points, so ouch. I'm gonna put 5 connections. Well, these have been sitting for some time, so we'll unclamp. I've never tried using PVC glue in this fashion before, as I would use normal glue. So we'll see if it works. Pieces bonded together. There. That's nice. It retains its flexibility, but it takes a considerable amount more strength to bend it. Excellent. So we'll continue with the gluing. Alright. Put these together. And once again, clamp away. And here's our piece. Now 3 segments of plastic thick. I've got one final segment to adhere to this. It's getting more and more rigid each time, which is excellent. We'll see what kind of strength this has. I'll decide whether I need another piece or not. See, it came misaligned a little bit as it was setting, but that's not going to be a problem because I'll be trimming this down anyway. But yeah, that's quite rigid now. Very difficult to bend, and that's what I'm looking for. Looking good. I still got these pieces to attach, but the core of the bow is now done. And now we can kind of see just how strong it is. So just to show that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, I've got this spool of iron mechanic wire here, and it weighs 2 pounds, sorry. And I'm going to place it on the end of the arm just to show the strength. You can see a little bit of flex there. And now we'll compare it to this. These are the same 4 pieces, but these have not been glued together, and you can see there is quite a bit of a difference in the carrying capacity. Well, it took a fair amount of time, but I've got the limbs of this bow both glued together. We've got 7 layers thick on this end, 4 layers thick on this end. This will be the tip of the limb. And these are surprisingly heavy, but it shouldn't be too much of a surprise considering there's just as much plastic in this as there is in this entire long bow. Equal in weight. So, the next step is going to be just to trim up these edges on the bandsaw to make both of these perfectly uniform in shape and to remove the jagged, nasty goop on the ends here. So, to the workshop. Okay, so now that these things have been tidied up a little bit, it's not perfect by any means yet, but it's at least a pretty straight edge. I've got to make a template so I can correctly get this side profile down. It's not actually going to have this stepped appearance in the final product, but it'll be a nice sinuous curve. So I'll begin that just by tracing this bow on, or limb of the bow on here. And it doesn't need to be as long as the whole thing because this isn't getting changed at all. It's going to stay 4 layers thick and that's it. Just to make sure that it's going to work on both of them, since they both have a slightly different shape, I'll line it up to the old template and then draw the lines of this one as well. Had it a bit too high, but that's okay. So I know that one of them is shorter than the other one here, one is shorter than the other one here, and one is shorter than the other here. So I'm going to use the shortest of all the lines. And I'll just draw a sinuous curve in interconnecting them. Something like that. So that'll basically be it, and I want to put a hole right here for the axle of the pulley that's going to go on the end here. Now to cut this out and trace it onto my chunks of old plastic. So, as you can see, I've got my template cut out now, no more jagged bumps that you see on this. And I'll just take it and transfer the pattern onto my blank here. Just line up the corner, make sure this edge is nice and even, and I'll trace it on. Sorry if my hand is in the way. There. Got this black line here. Just got to remove all the black, and that will be the rough shape of the side profile completed. Like the way I build, measuring's for suckers. Alright, so now we can begin. I just want to move that back a tiny bit more. Perfect. Activate. I'll make sure to press it all the way that way and firmly against the back, and that'll keep it 90 degrees. Go deep enough. Oh, that's why the thing's in the way. Oh well. Okay, so I've got the side profile of both of the limbs done now. So now I got to work on the top profile. So once again, I'll make another template. Just lining up this edge of the limb here with the edge of the piece of paper, and this edge as well, and I'll just trace a line. It doesn't matter if this paper is not the same length as the limb, because the tapering is only going to be in this section. Specifically, it will be starting here. So I'll just cut this out. Now, to ensure that both sides are symmetrical, I'll simply fold this in half. just draw my taper on here. Okay, so at the tip of the limb here, there's going to be a groove for the pulley to fit into. And it's going to be as wide as 3 layers of this polycarbonate sheet. So, oh, it also has to accommodate 2 washers, so I'm just going to put the depth there. So that's 1 layer. And the next. So that dimension will be enough to accommodate both the pulley and the washers. Now, we just need a tapered line from here to the edge. Kind of like that. Our template is done, and we're ready to transfer it onto here. Yeah, we just cut off the black and we're good to go. Well, for the most part, that's ready. I left a little bit of extra material on the inside here because I want it to be as tight as tolerance as possible. I can always make it shorter, or wider, but I can't shorten it. So I'm erring on the side of caution. But this basically is the finished limb. So hopefully here you can see that I've simply taped both of the limbs together. And now I've got one final piece I want to do. I've measured out the center line and marked 2 points here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this 1/2-inch drill bit here to drill some holes in there so I can use these gigantic 1/2-inch bolts to secure my limbs onto my riser. One hole. Well, it's through. So both limbs are now finally done. Completed all the major shaping on both sides of these. And now I'm ready to assemble the riser and handle assembly. With a traditional bow, both limbs are kind of in parallel like this in a straight line. But when it comes to the compound bow, you can alter the angle of these limbs. In this configuration, you pull the limbs back, and then as it springs back, all the weight is pushed this way towards the user, and that's what we call recoil. But if you can take the limbs and point them kind of this way, as I'm going to do with this compound bow, that basically eliminates all the recoil. And this is going to allow me to be much more accurate. And it will also give the bow a much smaller profile. So, with that said, let us begin creating a template to make this bow. Okay, so I've got this thing pretty much laid out in the shape I want it to be. So now I'm just going to establish some reference points. So we'll start off with the part of the limb that will actually come in contact with the riser. So we'll be at that angle, about that long. That's all I need for that for. Now I'm just going to determine the center point of the thing. That's where the arrow will lie, in the arrow rest. So that'll be somewhere around there. So I'm only going to draw one half of this, that way it'll be symmetrical more or less. Okay, now I got to determine where the string will lie in the finished product. That's going to be about here. And about 6 inches from there is where I want my handle to be. So, there's that. Now, so that'll be where the arrow sits pretty much, and my handle's going to be down below that slightly. But basically, with that little bit of information, I can now design my riser. So, after a little bit of artistic flair and whatnot, here is the finished template. So, basically this entire structure here will be built out of one continuous sheet of this Russian birch plywood, which has 13 layers and happens to be 13 millimeters wide. Translates to roughly about a half an inch. So, from like here right to the other end will be one sheet of plywood, and where you see the green highlighted portions here, there will be additional pieces of plywood sandwiched on either side. Or perhaps I'll use some other wood, we'll see. So basically what I have to do now is take this and translate this shape. Come here, you. Ta-da! Onto my sheet of plywood. As you can basically see with the handle here, I'm trying to achieve kind of the same concept as with my arrow longbow. As you can see, it's got the nice pistol grip going on there. So here are all the components ready to be cut out. I've got the main handle and riser assembly. This piece here will be going on the left side of the handle, or the right side of the handle I should say. This piece will be the arrow rest. It'll be going on the left side of the handle, and I've got 4 little pieces that will be used to beef up the ends of the handle here. Alrighty. So, I've got the various components of my bow cut out here. We've got the handle. Over here we've got the arrow rest. And we've got the 4 components that will support the edges of the riser. Here's the riser handle assembly itself. you'll notice that I've got some grooves here on the sides of the riser, and basically those are to secure these little posi-lock bolts here. And I've also drilled a couple half-inch holes through those to secure the bolts to the nuts. Now at this point all I've got to do is glue all this stuff together, and yeah, and at that point there'll just be a little bit of filing to do, and we're ready to shoot this puppy. Well, after finishing, of course. Excellent. So now everything's glued together. To finalize the rough shaping, I just got to trim up the uneven edges on the side here, so I have one consistent block to work with, and drill out the holes for my fancy pistol grip type handle. As you can see, the bolts and nuts are firmly inserted in here now. They're not going anywhere. Power tool time. So now you can hopefully see that I've trimmed the edges up somewhat on the bandsaw so they're a little bit more uniform. And I've drilled the holes here for the finger grips to get through. I've roughed them out anyway. Now to continue with the shaping, I'm going to start off with my handy draw knife here. Basically just a giant blade, and I'm going to use that to shave off the larger chunks of material. Here's a spoke shave, which will be used for some finer carving, and places where those two tools won't fit, I've got my handy little box cutter here. I'll be using that to carve out some of the wood in here. And moving along, once the carving is done, I'll be using the rasp just to smooth things out, as well as the rat tail files be used to smooth things out in the more detailed areas. And last but not least, my handy dandy half round file, which once again will be used to work on the finger grips, getting them nice and round. Now this piece is finally done. Got all my tool working finished, all my sanding finished, and now all that remains to complete it is to apply some stain and some varnish, and now I can move on to the cams. So now it's finally time to build the cams. As you can see here, I've divided out 6 segments of this piece of polycarbonate sheeting here, and I'm going to build that up into blocks, 3 layers thick. So I've simply cut out those squares on the bandsaw and then glued them together, 3 layers thick on this side and again 3 layers here. This will be the finished product. This is what I want my cam to resemble. Got a hole for the axle here. Got a hole that's tapped for a screw, which will secure the strings on. A hole going through the edge here for the tension string, and another hole for the bowstring itself. And basically the strings will be secured by loops will be passed through both of these holes. And then once both loops are through, I'll pass the screw down through both loops, and that'll lock both strings in place, and then they'll come around the other edge of the cam. So the way we build that is first to take this 2-inch ABS pipe coupling. Costs like, I don't know, 90 cents. I'm gonna stick that on here and trace the inner diameter of this coupling. So that'll give me the diameter of the inside of the piece of polycarbonate here. And in addition to that, I'm going to be gluing this circle to the inside of the coupler. That will prevent the string from applying pressure to this laminated edge here, because that could pry the layers apart. This gives it kind of like a bumper or a buffer, holds everything together. So we'll cut this out. Now that I've cut it out on the saw, I'm just going to file the edge down a bit, just to smooth it out, get rid of any bumps, make sure it's nice and round and has a nice seam until it fits snugly inside pipe coupling. So now, prior to gluing this in here, I'm going to take a little piece of sandpaper and rough up the inside edge. That's just to give it a little bit of texture on the inside there so the glue has something to adhere to. Okay, now that I've cleaned it off, I've taken off my protective film, and now I'm just applying a bead of Gorilla Glue to the edge of my disc here. No need to be sparing. Now I'll just pop the disc into the side of the wheel that's been sanded. Try to make sure it's more or less level. Yeah, so I'll just wait for this to dry now. Alright, this thing's dry now. Time to cut it out on the bandsaw and return it to a disc-like shape. So I now gotta cut this disc free from the coupler. I'm gonna give it a little extra room because I can't really see the inside edge. So let's have at it. When cutting around things on a bandsaw, you're going to be really careful that it doesn't actually grip the thing and then start spinning on you, because that can be dangerous, so hold it rather tightly. sure that I erred on the side of caution there and cut a little bit extra. I've got about 1 millimeter of material to remove on this side, and again another millimeter to remove on this side. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to file down this edge here with my rasp. As you can see, this takes some time. In a pinch, you can also use one of these handy-dandy rotary tools. Now that I've taken a considerable amount of material off of this thing, I'm going to switch to using a large sheet of sandpaper to finally smooth this surface down, as well as this one. I'll be using 150 grit sandpaper for this application. And I'll just go to town. I'll continue doing this until the surface here is cloudy and one consistent surface across the entire face of it. Okay, so now that I've got both faces of this nice and smooth once again, I'm now ready to begin carving the groove on the edge of it that the string will reside in. And in order to do that, I'm just going to use the handy-dandy rat tail file and very carefully file along this edge until I have a nice round contour here. I found the easiest way to do that is to set it down on a flat surface, lay the file down next to it, and just file. File spinning. And that will leave a very fine groove down the center, and I'll just continue doing that until it looks more like the other one. Like so. Okay. Well, my groove here is now done. And I'm ready for the next step, which is going to be flattening a small portion on the edge of it. That portion will be flattened to accommodate the head of the screw, so that it doesn't really extend out beyond the edge of the disc. So, in order to accomplish this, I'm just going to take a larger rat tail file, place it on the edge, and file sideways. Okay, a little flat spot's been created, so now I'm ready to drill the hole here that the screw is going to go into. The size of drill I need is 7/64. It's pretty tiny. Let's move you back a little bit here. So, once again, the way I'll get that hole nice and perfectly centered is I've got my 7/64 drill bit here. I'm going to place it on the center of the little dent I've made, and I'm going to keep very close eye on this spirit level here, and that's going to keep my drill bit straight. Just going to get it centered first. Now that I've got it started, I'll make sure my spirit level is level, and then drill away. Okay, now we're ready to put some threads into this puppy. Obviously, that's accomplished using a tool known as a tap. It's basically a little threaded blade that cuts threads in here. So I'll just slide this doohickey on here, give me some leverage, insert that into the hole. A lot of people overdo it when using taps. They put too much torque on them. Basically, a good rule of thumb is you screw it on 180 degrees, wind it back 90 degrees. Screw it 180, wind it back 90. 180, 90. 180, 90. 180, 90. In this way, it won't get jammed. It won't cut too deep too quickly. Ta-da! Now it's the perfect size to accommodate one of these 6/32 by 1.5 inch bits. These are, of course, a little bit too long. I need about a 1 inch bit, so I'm gonna have to, or not bit, bolt. So I'm gonna have to cut off roughly about 1 centimeter. And that's going to be accomplished with this handy dandy little thing. Cut off lever. Ta-da! So the next bit to drill will be this tiny little hole here. I'm going to do that using a slightly larger bit. Just going to line up where the edges of that hole are. And that'll simplify the drilling process. So now I've got 2 holes on either side of my threaded rod there. Now what I need to do is carve out a gap in between them. To do so, I'm going to use another handy dandy cutter. This is a carbide rotary cutter. Now I just very, very carefully carve out that section. Ta-da! So the next step is to drill out these 2 holes which come in radially from the side and intersect this hole I made through the surface. They're done in the exact same ways as this hole here. This little one. Basically set it down once again. Place my drill bit on the side. This is a slightly larger one this time. And go in being very careful to keep the spirit level bubble centered. And there you have it. Got 1 hole for a string, hole for the screw, another hole for the other string. Last but not least, I've got the axle hole to drill. Simplify matters. I'm just lining up the holes on top and transposing the location of that axle hole the drill bit. So now I know where to put it. So here we have one of the tension strings. This is not the string you pull on, but the more mechanical aspect of the bow. As you can see, it's a continuous loop bowstring. Got my one loop on this end, and basically what's going to happen is this little loop here is going to pass into this hole. Thusly, see it poking through just a little bit, and it's going to be secured by this screw. And here we've got the servings. There's the center of the string. There's a total of 8 strands there. And, sorry, we zoom out. Whoa, what's this? It becomes a little bit more complicated. At this end, we've got, it seems to have split into 2, and I've got 2 loops on this end. That is to secure onto the main bolt of the other cam, which is here. I still have to make another one of these tension strings. It will go from the screw on this side over to the bolt on this side. And, well, here you can see it being built. Remarkable. It's got it's a continuous loop bowstring, and it's got 4 cables here. I hope you can see that. And it's wrapped in the normal fashion along this side. I've wrapped servings around it. But when it came to this side, I split it in 2. I've got 2 cables on the top, 2 cables on the bottom, and I've wrapped servings along each individual. So here we have all the components finally finished. Got the completed cam assemblies. Got my limbs of given them a quick coat of paint and bolted them to the riser handle assembly. And finally the strings. I've got the main bowstring with the serving in the center there, as per usual. And I've got the 2 tension strings, which have the double loops at the end. Basically, I roughly showed you how these are done. You treat each of these loops as you're serving as one end of the string, attaching the serving here. And then once you've got that attached, you attach a second serving, binding the 2 of them together along here. So, we're now ready to connect the strings to the cams, and the cams to the limbs. I figure the easiest way to do it is in the order I just mentioned, attaching the strings first to the cams, and then bending the limbs and hooking the cams up to there. So, I'm now going to attach the single looped end of one of the tension strings and the looped end of the main bowstring into the 2 little holes I've got drilled up here. So I've squashed that rather thin. And now, I shall insert it. Ever so carefully. There, you can see it poking through there. Now we'll take the main bowstring and it'll go through the other side. The tension strings go on the inside, bowstring on the outside. Now that I've got both loops in there, I just tighten up the screw and pass it through both loops, locking them in place. There, they're both securely attached. I'll just tighten up this screw later. For the purpose of the video, just assume that I've done that already. So I have to repeat that process with the other cam over here, and then we'll be ready to attach the cams and the other end of the tension strings to the limbs. So, as you can hopefully see, the tension strings and the main string are now firmly attached to the cams. So the next step is to attach the double loop end of the tension string to the bolt, which is going to secure this cam onto this limb. So I've got these washers, a bolt, posi-lock bolt, and, whoops, posi-lock nut, I should say, and a bolt. So basically, I'll take one end of the tension string, pass it through the bolt, put a washer on there, but the rounded edge of the washer is facing the string. We don't want to cut it. And then that is going to go into the arm. Like so. And then the cam is going to go onto the bolt. Like so. Take the other end of the tension string, put it on the bolt. Then I'll take the other washer with the rounded side facing the string. And finally attach the posi-lock nut. So what we end up with is the double loop is attached to the limb on either side of the cam. Now it's time to connect the other side. The bow is going to have to be under tension to do this.
So finally, this piece is complete for quite a while, and ended up looking quite pretty, if I do say so myself. Unfortunately, it doesn't quite have the mechanical advantage I'd like. It does have some nice action, as you can see here, but as you can also see, the draw length is quite short. Here I'll show you a couple of shots taken with the bow. Fortunately, these arrows are a little bit too lightweight for this. And I'm also shooting from a very close range, so I'm doing a whole lot of Archer's Paradox in the upcoming shots. This isn't a very strong bow, it's probably about maybe 20 pounds if I'm lucky. But it does show promise. With some modifications, it can be a lot stronger.
Well, as I said, it's not the strongest bow in the world, but it is functional, and it's a proof of concept. I know that Lexan makes suitable cams, and that PVC seems to work pretty well in this laminate configuration. Some things I could do to make it a little stronger are, for instance, I could add some diameter to the cams here, and that would, well, create more draw length by forcing the string on the bottom there to be pulled farther, thus storing more energy. Or another thing I could do is I could replace the limb of the bow itself with something stronger, such as, oh, I don't know, a leaf spring. That would definitely generate some more oomph. But all in all, this was a fun little build. So, not quite as powerful as the last bow I tested here, but still quite functional. You can rest assured that my next one will be quite a bit more powerful. But until then, thank you for watching. Stay tuned. This is Longbow, over and out. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below in the underbar. Bye.